Welcome back to TrueNight Voices. Tonight everything might be quiet. Or not. Put on your headphones. Let's begin. Being home alone is supposed to feel safe. Your space, your walls, your silence. But sometimes it's that very silence that lets you hear what you weren't supposed to. In tonight's stories, nothing comes crashing through the window. Nothing screams. Just a strange light that never leaves. A door that should never be opened. And a room that breathes when no one's there. I used to live on the edge of a small town in Oregon. My house sat at the end of a narrow road, the kind where the pavement turns to gravel, and the gravel eventually turns to dust. Beyond my backyard stretched a wide, empty field, nothing but tall grass, swaying pine trees in the distance, and the occasional rustle of deer at dusk. It was peaceful, too peaceful, maybe. I moved there after a bad breakup, the kind that leaves you hollow, raw, and desperate for silence. I told myself I needed space to breathe, to think, to heal. What I got was something else. It started on a Tuesday night, the kind of night where the air feels too still. I'd just finished dinner, frozen lasagna, and half a glass of cheap red wine, and was settling into the couch, half watching some old true crime rerun. The kind you've seen 100 times but keep playing anyway because the noise feels comforting. Then there was a flicker. Not from the TV, from the window. A light, out in the field. I paused, leaned forward, brow furrowed. Probably a flashlight. Maybe someone walking their dog or a neighbor checking fence posts. But I knew better. There were no neighbors behind me, not for miles. The light was small, faint, just a soft, white orb bobbing in the grass. At first, it moved slowly like someone walking with purpose. Then it paused and turned toward the house. My heart skipped. I sat frozen, my body tight with an ancient instinct I hadn't felt in years. That sense that you're not alone anymore, and maybe you never were. I told myself not to be stupid, grabbed my phone, took a blurry picture through the glass, but when I looked back, the light was gone. No footsteps, no rustling, just darkness. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I convinced myself it was a trick of the eyes, maybe a reflection, a drone, something harmless, something explainable. But the next night it came back. Same time, same place. Only this time, there were two lights, and they moved separately, almost dancing. I watched them from the window for nearly 5 minutes. Every hair on my body stood on end. They weren't flashlights, I could tell. The glow was too even, too contained, like spheres of soft light. No sound, no figures, just those lights weaving through the grass. And then they both turned toward me. Not toward the house, toward me. As if they could see me watching. I don't remember closing the curtains, but I must have. I remember backing away, my breath shallow, and locking every door and window like I was expecting someone to knock. But no knock came. Just silence until morning. Over the next week, the lights came back. Every night, like clockwork. Same time, same rhythm. I stopped watching them directly. I just sit in the dark and listen. Sometimes I'd peek from the corner of the curtain, heart pounding, just to confirm they were real. They always were. But it wasn't just the lights anymore. One night I found footprints behind my house. Just one set, barefoot. pressed deep into the damp earth, like someone had been standing there for hours. I touched the prints with my fingers, cold, still fresh. That same night, something brushed against my bedroom window. Soft, like fingertips. I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? Hey, I think glowing orbs are watching me from a field, and someone barefoot is touching my windows at night? Right. But the fear, it crept in like fog. Slow, relentless. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I stopped going to work. My mind started to spiral. I'd sit by the window, knees pulled to my chest, waiting for the first light to appear, and when it did, I'd whisper to myself, over and over, I see you. I see you. I see you. Like that would protect me. One night, the power went out. I was in the middle of boiling water for tea, and boom, everything went black. Total silence. Except for the sound of the back door creaking open. I stood frozen in my kitchen, spoon in hand, listening. It creaked again. I hadn't locked it. In my haze, I must have forgotten. The only light came from the moon, dim and cold through the window. I moved slowly, too slowly to the drawer where I kept my flashlight. It wasn't there. Neither was the spare. I backed away from the kitchen, every step measured. I couldn't hear footsteps, couldn't hear breathing, but I felt it. A presence. Something waiting. Something watching. And then I saw the light. Not outside. Inside. A soft glow, just down the hallway. Floating. Silent. Coming closer. No sound. No footsteps. Just that unbearable glow moving down the hall like it belonged here. Like it had always belonged here. I ran. Out the front door. Into the gravel. Barefoot. Didn't stop until I reached the road, chest heaving, lungs burning. Behind me, the house stood still. No lights. No sound. Just waiting. The police found nothing. No prints, no damage, no signs of break-in. They looked at me like I was fragile, like I was lonely. Maybe I was, but I know what I saw, and I haven't gone back since. It's been almost a year now. Sometimes I still dream of that field, of the lights, of the way they moved like they knew me. Sometimes I wonder if they followed me, because a few nights ago, from my apartment balcony in the middle of the city, I saw it. That same soft glow. Far down the alley. Just waiting. I booked the cabin to get away. It wasn't burnout, not exactly. More like this persistent sense of drowning. I work in marketing meetings, pitches, fake smiles, and constant screen time. My therapist said I needed space. Real, quiet space. So I found Timber Hollow, a small, off-the-grid resort tucked into the Oregon mountains. Only 6 cabins total, each spaced far enough apart that you'd never see your neighbors unless you tried. No Wi-Fi. No reception. No service. It sounded perfect. And for the first day, it was. The drive up the mountain was long and winding, and by the time I reached the check-in lodge, it was nearly dusk. The sky had that pale lavender hue you only see in remote places, where the light lingers longer than it should. The woman at the front desk, Beth, was kind, soft-spoken. She gave me a key on a carved wooden fob, pointed to a trail leading to cabin 3, and said something I didn't catch until later. Just leave the closet door alone. It sticks. I thought she meant the utility closet or some broom cabinet. I nodded, didn't think twice. Cabin 3 was exactly what I needed. High ceilings, wooden beams, a stone fireplace I never used but loved to look at, and windows, so many windows, all framed by tall pines and a stillness so deep it felt holy. The first night was peaceful. I read a paperback by lantern light, drank tea, and actually slept. Not the kind of sleep where your mind still spins, but real, heavy sleep. Dreamless. Full. I remember thinking, this is what healing feels like. The second night, things changed. It was around 2 a.m. when I woke up. No sound, no dreams, just this strange pull in my chest, like something had tapped my subconscious on the shoulder. The cabin was dark, cold. I sat up slowly, unsure why I was even awake, and then I heard it. A soft thump. Not loud, not aggressive, just present. It came from the back of the cabin where the bedroom closet was. I stayed in bed, heart gradually ticking faster, told myself it was the wood settling, or the wind. But the night was still. No breeze, not even crickets. And then the thump came again. Same place, like something shifting inside. I stood slowly, feet pressing into the cold wooden floor, and walked toward the closet. Hand on the doorknob. Hesitated. Just leave the closet door alone. It sticks. I pulled my hand back. Didn't open it. Went back to bed. The next morning, I laughed it off. Made coffee, sat on the porch, watched birds skitter through the trees. But something had shifted. The cabin didn't feel quite as cozy anymore. It felt observed. That night, I left a lantern on. I don't know why. I just felt like I needed the light. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I heard it again. Thump. But this time, not from the closet. From the kitchen. Like someone had placed something gently on the counter. I got out of bed. Slower this time, heart louder than my footsteps. The lantern light flickered. I stepped into the kitchen and froze. The fruit bowl on the counter, the one I hadn't touched since I arrived, the one with the 3 green apples the resort staff had placed there, now only had 2. The third was on the floor. Placed upright, not fallen. Placed. Perfectly centered on the tile. I didn't move for what felt like 10 minutes. The next morning, I walked back to the lodge. Beth wasn't there, but another woman older, stiff-sat behind the counter. I told her what happened. She didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. Just said, "Cabin 3 always wakes people up a bit." And then she smiled. Not warm, not cruel, just tired. I should have left then. But something about that cabin's stillness, the isolation, I didn't want to give it up. I was afraid to go back, but even more afraid to return to the noise of the world outside. So I stayed. That night, I locked the closet. It didn't feel stuck. It opened easily when I tried it earlier, out of curiosity. Just coats and a few extra blankets inside. But it felt wrong, like air that hadn't been touched in years. I locked it, wedged a chair against the knob. And that night, I dreamed. In the dream, I was standing in the cabin, watching myself sleep. Everything looked exactly as it did in real life, same flickering lantern, same apple bowl. But in the dream, the closet door was wide open, and something stood inside it. Tall, pale. Its face was blank, like wet paper stretched too thin. It didn't move, but I felt it smiling. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The lantern had gone out, and the chair was no longer against the closet door. It sat quietly in the center of the room, facing me. I left the next morning. Didn't wait for checkout. Didn't leave a note. Just grabbed my things and walked straight down the mountain road, ignoring my phone's dead screen and the weight pressing on my chest like I was forgetting something or someone. I still don't know what happened in cabin 3. I've never been back, but sometimes when I close my eyes, I see that pale face in the dark, and I remember the way the closet door opened so quietly, as if it had always been meant to, as if something had been waiting there just for me. There's a specific kind of quiet that only exists in a city at 3 a.m. The world doesn't stop, but it exhales. My apartment sits on the 10th floor of a high-rise in Chicago. 1 bedroom, hardwood floors, too many windows. I'd lived there for 3 years, and in all that time, I'd never been scared to be alone. Until that night. It started with a knock. Not loud, not urgent, just deliberate. Knock, knock. I was lying on the couch, watching reruns with the sound low, the kind of half-watching you do when you can't sleep but don't want to be alone with your thoughts. The knock didn't come from the front door. It came from the kitchen. I sat up slowly, listened. Nothing. No footsteps above. No neighbors arguing through the wall. Just that thick, unnatural silence that feels like it's listening back. I got up and walked toward the kitchen and stopped because the light, the little light above the stove, the one I always turned off before bed, was on. Now, this might not sound like much. Lights get left on. People forget things. But I live alone, and I had not turned that light on. I checked the front door locked, deadbolt still turned, chain in place. I checked the windows still latched. Still, I couldn't shake it. That feeling of being observed, like the apartment was holding its breath. I turned off the stove light, did a lap around the apartment just to be sure, checked the closet, the shower, even under the bed like a child afraid of monsters. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself it was nothing. Paranoia, maybe sleep deprivation. I got back on the couch, pulled a blanket up to my chest, and let the flicker of the TV lull me halfway towards sleep. And then, I heard him breathe. It was faint, right behind me. That soft exhale you feel more than hear. Warm, real, human. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My body froze, mind screaming, lungs refusing to obey. I sat perfectly still, heart pounding in my throat. The breath came again. Closer. This time, I ran. I bolted from the couch, half tripping, grabbed my phone from the counter, and ran to the bedroom, slamming the door and locking it behind me. I dialed 911 with shaking hands. No answer. No signal. My apartment, in the middle of a modern city, had no cell service. I stared at the screen, trying not to cry. Then I remembered the building's landline was in the hallway, right next to the elevator. To get to it, I'd have to go back out. I pressed my ear to the bedroom door. Nothing. No breath. No footsteps. I counted to 30. Opened the door a crack. Peeked out. The apartment was dark, silent. And then I saw it. Just a sliver. But it was enough. Through the kitchen doorway, a shape moved. A shoulder. Then, a knife. Glinting in the stove light I know I had turned off. I closed the door, locked it again. My mind raced. Who was he? How did he get in? Was he still there? Or waiting? I didn't have a weapon, no escape, just a flimsy bedroom door and my growing panic. Then I remembered the fire escape. There was a window in the bedroom that opened onto a narrow ledge. If I could climb out and move quietly enough, I might reach the stairwell without him noticing. I moved to the window, hands trembling, slid it open. The wind outside was sharp and full of sirens. I looked back, one last time, and saw the bedroom door handle move. It turned slowly, deliberately, pressed down, but didn't open. He was testing it. Watching to see what I would do, I slipped through the window, barefoot, gripping the icy metal of the ledge like it might disappear beneath me. Step by step. Don't look down. Don't make a sound. I reached the stairwell, climbed down 4 flights, and banged on my neighbor's door like my life depended on it because it did. Mr. Alvarez, an old man who barely spoke English, opened the door in his pajamas. I begged him to call the police. He did. When they arrived, they found no one in my apartment. No forced entry. No fingerprints. Nothing missing. But the stove light was still on, and on the kitchen counter was a knife from my drawer, placed neatly, facing the hallway. They never figured out how he got in. The police suggested I might have imagined it. A dream. A breakdown. But I didn't imagine the bruise on my arm from the window ledge. Or the way the doorknob turned while I stood 3 feet away. And I definitely didn't imagine the final detail. When I returned to the apartment the next day with a locksmith, I found something carved into the inside of the bedroom door, something small and almost invisible unless the light hit just right. 3 words. You locked it. Not every horror story ends with a bang. Some stay behind quietly. A light you keep seeing. A sound you can't forget. And a question that never really leaves. What if you weren't alone and you just didn't know it yet? Thank you for listening to TrueNight Voices. If any part of tonight's story stayed with you, let me know. Or just leave a "I'll be here," listening with you